is Damon DeCuries. The time is 3:42 a.m. on 9/12/2006, day after 9/11 anniversary. I'm here in my apartment, which I've recently started doing some work on. I'm here also to talk about the potential of an energy park. The purpose of an energy park, threefold. One is that looking at it from where we were before is that with the community garden program as it exists in the city of Newark is so that by having these abandoned lots underutilized, they add a lot of garbage, debris, vermin infestation, and so forth, and it affects the community significantly because it adds that level of squalor, so that, and also it infringes on costs because then sanitation department has to periodically come in to maintain those, which adds to the fiscal budget. So by creating a community garden and the Adopt a Lot program, then residents can take over these lots, clean them up, maintain beautiful community gardens, and in so doing we can maintain a clean city. However, one of the drawbacks with the Adopt a Lot program is that it's under a one-year lease term where these gardens will periodically be sold out from those who are developing them as part of the community. It is part of it. I mean, they never wanted to give away land, and I understand that. But at the same time, when you're doing that, it limits you so that, to the resident who's developing that lot, they don't want to go beyond, at most, keeping it clean because that's what the expectation is from the city. To actually do a good job and have a beautiful garden and great programs and great development, and then have it being taken away from you doesn't work either. So, looking at the potential of an energy park, in the selfish interest, we were, or I should say, I'm really considering that it offers a way in which we can create an extension of those leases so that we can have permanence and have the growth and development that we are providing naturally without the need or the frustration of having it taken away from us at any given time without, any notice or, it's happened to us before. Like, we had one garden on Washington Street, which, we had a grant for, we had a beautiful water cistern, beautiful, hundreds and hundreds of hours in development, and it gets given away and sold, So it's like, and we don't want to be squatters, but we're given a squatter contract, with a one-year lease. So what does an energy park do is that it allows a threefold thing, which is, number one, we have to benefit the city financially, and that's a very critical question because for the city, we can't just go to the city and be like, okay, we want you to give us free land and offer nothing in return. That doesn't benefit the city. And, unfortunately the city has their fiscal responsibilities, and, whether that's dehumanizing or whatever, that's irrelevant. We have to recognize it because as long as they feel that's important, we feel that's important, and if that's what is limiting the issue, that's what we have to do. solar energy is, and renewable energy is definitely a big step, because what it offers is, one, it benefits the planet. It's environmentally beneficial because now we have energy that's clean and green and doesn't pollute or destroy, has no operating cost. So that's very critically beautiful in that way, but also by being able to produce energy and be able to sell it into the city for a lower price than they are currently paying for their utilities, then the city is getting a financial benefit without having to take anything away or destroy anything. So simply put, the city gives a land grant for $1 a year. We take the land, we install the solar panels, we cover the land in the solar panels, and then we sell the electricity back to the city at a rate lower than what they're paying now. There's no money down, no investment. The city has the benefit of actually seeing the lots developed in both a sustainable, economical, and beautifying way without having to put any investment in it. And it saves them money so that their fiscal budget is improved without having to do anything. Number two is the humanity. And, it always has to go money, person, earth. Whereas as an environmentalist, I always put earth first, and then think of the human aspect, and then think of the financial aspect. But, the world don't run like that at times, so we can't always do that. In terms of the humanity, what you're looking at is STEM labs. Now, I have a little brochure over here on a STEM technology. This is from a company called 5S. They make a lot of the curriculum, STEM boards, and electronic testing. In fact, you can see I have a soldering iron over here. We've got some electronics set up on the wall. I've basically taken my own apartment and, it's become a science and technology museum. And we'll get a minute to do a little bit of a walk around, because a lot of the stuff that I'm developing is the stuff that you can see in a science and technology center. Also, so what does STEM stand for? Science, technology, education, and math. In the United States, we're at a severe deficit in terms of labor that are qualified in terms of the science, technology, engineering, and math, and the predominant engineering field and scientists that we're employing currently are immigrant labor through China, through India. And, India has more honor roll students than there are students in all of the United States, and that's a severe problem, that the average high school student only reads around 2 pages a week of actual written material, and a lot of them, don't even have basic grammar skills. And one of the issues in terms of looking at the problem is we're running on a competitive education system, and the competitive education system will work in a classroom of all the type A personalities, but not everybody's type A. And in fact, the majority of humans are very cooperative in nature, and they're non-competitive. And there is no cooperative learning experience. There is no hands-on training. And it's a real deficit for our education system, because if you don't, like, from example, in the competitive environment, it leads to a lot of bullying and, competition where the kids are against each other, and it's designed that way by that educational model. And so what inevitably happens is there are going to be those students left at the wayside. I myself actually went, despite the fact that, I have a degree in electrical engineering, I have a degree in English, I have a degree in architecture, I actually went to 3 high schools and had, because of safety transfers where, that competitive environment just wasn't working for me. And it has no relevance to say that I'm dumb or inept. It's just that that model didn't work for me. And it wasn't really until I went to my 3rd high school, which was an alternative high school in New York City that provided a lot of the cooperative education, but also hands-on learning experience through internships. And one of my first internships was at the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens, where I got my first taste in science doing hydroponics and plant management and building management systems, where later that grew to my degree in electrical engineering and my degree in architecture and design. And a lot of this stuff I owe to that high school, because if I didn't have that opportunity to transcend the problem, I don't know where I would have been. And again, it's a very emotional thing for me, because as that student who was in that situation where, we always go to the teacher and say, oh, what's wrong with the education system? And that's always the wrong approach. You have to go to the student who, failed in education, the dropout who failed at school. And we call them the dropout, and we call them, they're the ones who failed, but it's not them who failed, it's the education system failed them. And if you want the analysis, you ask the person who was the victim first. You can ask the dropout student why the education system doesn't work, and they'll tell you better than any educator, because they experience it on a much deeper level than that educator. And again, with that being said, what does the STEM mean to me, and what does the Science and Technology Center mean to me, is it's a chance to take the opportunity that was given to me and pay it forward. And that's really why I'm doing this. It's not about the money or, oh, I want a cool office and a really nice job. It's about, you want to benefit things. And, solar has been good to me. Electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, science, technology, engineering, and math. The opportunity, and Martin Luther King put it best when he said, you can take your frustrations and wallow in despair, or you can take them and use them as an opportunity for a growth of infinite creativity. Now, I might be misquoting him a little bit in that sentence, but you know what I mean? It doesn't matter if I'm misquoting him a little. It's just such a beautiful statement, and it's one of those things that I was doing before I had even read that, and then when I had read that, I'm like, okay, that's what I'm doing, and it makes the most sense. Solar industry in its way, I've been in the business since 2005, and in this little 9-10 year period, I've seen 4 companies I've worked for going bankrupt, and I've had 6 different jobs, So it's like where your expectancy is maybe a 1-2 year contract before you get laid off and have to go back on unemployment. That's rough. And, you know, when you're constantly worrying about paying the rent and, you know, not ending up homeless on the street, you know, it's to do that, you know, what Dr. King said is just so important because, you know, a lot of times, you know, the wallowing in despair is addiction, you know, well, alcoholism or shopping, you know, a lot of people shop to make themselves better, or, you know, sex or drugs or whatever the hell else. And while addiction provides that temporary band-aid, it doesn't provide a permanent solution compared to developing your mind and freeing yourself in your mind, because when you become sharp and you have that neuroplasticity where your thoughts can flow and you can even have little conversations like this with a camera, that's where it's all about. And that's bringing that joy back into your life where you didn't have that because of this like deep-seated depression, because you're always worrying about your problems rather than being the creative genius to solve all that and not have to worry anymore. That's basically it. So, you know, you're looking at, in terms of a lease agreement, you're going to bring in a developer. You know, it could be a $5 million solar panel, it could be a $10 million solar panel. The other issue is to sell electricity into the city is currently legally prohibitive because in the state of New Jersey, we don't have the virtual net metering laws. Now, what virtual net metering means is that essentially, let's say you take City Hall. Their electric bill might be $3,000 a month. Okay, we could get rid of your bill. You're going to have a payment to this leasing partner of $1,500 a month. We're going to put $1,500 cash money in your pocket, and it's going to be green, it's going to be solar, it's beautiful. But in accordance with standard net metering laws, we can only do that if we can put the solar panels on the roof of the property. Now, City Hall might not have a great roof. So, in a virtual net metering situation, you can locate the solar panels anywhere within the grid as long as it's under the same utility provider. Now, in the case of Newark, New Jersey, we're all covered under PSENG. So if I have this adopt-a-lot where these 10 acres over here that are being underutilized, we can have $20 million in development into that lot. That development then sends electricity directly into the grid with a local meter on site. That energy isn't being used on the site. It's not on the roof of a usage building. It then goes out to the utility, and you have free choice at will of which utility bills can be combined with that meter. So, for example, in New York State, where, and you know, in disclosure, I do work, that's what my day job is. I'm an electrical inspector, subcontract electrical inspector for the state of New York, New York State Energy Research Development Authority, who is responsible for the oversight of the solar program in the state of New York. One of the things that NYSERDA did was creating the virtual net metering law in New York State. Now, for example, as an inspector, I had one project where $10 million solar panel on a landfill that was capped off, so they're not putting any new garbage in it. The land has no other available use, so it's completely covered by this huge solar panel. There's no load on site, but meanwhile, that municipality, all that energy feeds into the grid so that the school 10 miles to the west, 10 miles to the east, so the high school, the elementary school, this elementary school, the other public school, all have their electricity 100% from that solar field at a lower rate than their current utility bill. It's entirely backed by the bank, who provides a lease agreement and basically sponsors the site so that there's no money down, because it's entirely coming off of the finance, and the financing is paid back by the solar panels. So the school isn't paying back the loan, the solar panels are, because the school had an electric bill, let's say of $3,000 a month, and then they get a new finance payment that's lower than what their previous electric bill was. So it's immediate savings from day one. And on top of that, because of the arrangement of the lease agreement, there's no escalation, unlike your regular electric bill, which can go up every 6 months or every year. You get a fixed rate on your electricity on a 25-year guarantee. No utility out there is going to provide that. There's no downside. As long as, again, the generation is there. The downside is if there's a breakdown and the solar panels aren't running, or if there's a shade issue. But that's where the engineers come in, because the engineers keep an eye on things so that that doesn't happen, to maintain that reliability. And having been NABCIP certified and working in this field for over 10 years, working as an inspector, in a lot of ways I've grown. A lot of contractors don't like me because I'm good at what I do. And as a contractor, watching the bank and watching the contractor to make sure that the energy park is done correctly, as an advocate for the city of Newark, as an advocate for the energy park development, there's not a lot of people out there in this world who can really do that as well as I can. And, as I always like to say, it's like I could do everything well, but sometimes I just can't do everything. So, I know that sounds a little cocky. That's basically it, And when we talk about science, technology, engineering, and math, this is the fun stuff. So I'm going to get a little walkthrough here, and, welcome. This is, ignore the pilot clothes. I'm a busy kind of guy. So let's take a little walkthrough here, and starting from our front gate here, it's a work in progress. So here it is, Gridlink Laboratories, the Science Museum, home of the micro-revolution and battery backup. Please open the card now, and you open the card here. Sorry, they ran out of Jurassic Park theme at Hallmark. That's my little joke, because I did the logo with the Jurassic theme overlay. I guess we should start on microgrid technology, since that's the majority of what we're thinking about here in the STEM lab. So this was my baby right here. Exhibit 7, the first working proof of concept. So, believe it or not, I was in such a trance that I didn't even realize I was building a Ghostbuster backpack when I first created this. 2007, I wrote the original patent in power management theory. 2011 was the first working prototype, as you see it here. This here is my U.S. patent. Kind of very proud of this. And in 2015, this won Innovation of the Year in Electrical Energy Storage in Munich, Germany at the Intersolar Conference. Top 10. I know I didn't get number one, but I was in the top 10 in innovation of the year in electrical energy storage. And so it was on a cleaner unit. It wasn't on this particular model. But, again, like when I was constructing it, I was in such a deep trance and wasn't really paying attention to the look of it. So it has that total functionality where there was no concern for aesthetic. So it creates that sort of ugly beautiful. And I call it the Ghostbuster backpack because like literally after it was built, I put it on a backpack frame and I'm like, holy crap, this is the Ghostbuster backpack. Here's my lab coat. And then later, since it was the first working prototype, it got abandoned. A lot of the parts got stripped out in the decommissioning and we moved on to later units. So as one of the features in terms of a microgrid solar control is like, after it got decommissioned, I'm like, okay, what am I going to turn it into? So basically it's been converted over to a sound and lights kit where it actually provides speakers and noise. And I use it for presentation purposes because it shows the principles of the electrical circuit, how the inverters interact with the transfer switches and the battery charger. As part of the decommissioning, adding the sound and lights, I actually added and designed, based on the original Ghostbuster light chasers of the original cyclometer, I built up an identical version based on the original from the movie, which you can see there. Then later on, this went on to develop other areas of technology. Right here behind our closed doors is we have our top secret R&D lab, where I'll give you a little sweet taste of the third generation, which that's as far as you're going to get to peak. That's still a work in progress. We haven't quite completed it yet. Other areas of technology, outdoor air conditioner, hand pump driven water compressor. What's unique about this is I'm running a little bit of an experiment on sort of an applied technology of water jet systems. So what I did here was, and you can take a look here with the calculations, on hands-on exhibit 2, the jacuzzi jet design, and the original Da Vinci 3-axis bearing. If you rotate a shaft with 3 ball bearings, as the shaft rotates, these create a spherical movement where they collapse upon themselves, creating this oscillation where they turn into themselves. This was originally discovered by Leonardo da Vinci, which later, in the rotated spline phasic of 3-phase alternating current was later developed by Tesla, which is this symbol Y. Additionally, one of the things in the Vedic math, they have the concept of, not Vedic math, but in acupressure, there's a concept of that there's precision points of the nerve where these nerve points can be triggered to stimulate other nerves in the body to awakening. And by doing these water jets in this sort of sequence based on the 3-phase math, the 12 points here, so there's 12 points against the head, so we have 12 by 3, which equals 4, representing the phase 3 with the neutral return. The formation of energies, basically, in a nutshell, all I'm trying to do is figure out ways I can better relax by not relaxing and coming up with ways to better relax. Sounds funny. Anyway, I'm not going to get a little bit more into that. Again, if you come out to the museum, you can have a longer discussion on this, but,